Already back. UFC Nashville fight week. Took a little bit of a break. Took a little bit of a vacation, but now we back because UFC anyways was kind of like slow in the last 2 weeks or so since that incredible UFC 317 card. And we have UFC Nashville, which I want to quickly discuss. But honestly, I mean, this card's all right. It doesn't really attract a lot of excitement for me. There's not a lot of fighters that I'm interested in on this card. But still, it's a nice build up to UFC 318, which is next week in New Orleans. And yeah, this is a great spot for the UFC to be in the summer, Nashville. One of the sick places to link up in the summer. And the main event is a rare heavyweight main event that we see in the UFC between Derrick Lewis, a heavyweight vet. What do they call him? The Black Beast, versus a literal rookie in the UFC, coming off only one UFC fight so far, destroyed Tafa in his debut, Tallison Texeira, who's a very scary, with a lot of potential, heavyweight prospect. And he's already getting put in a main event in his second UFC fight ever. So the UFC is pushing this guy heavy. They need it. They need a heavyweight prospect like this to make some noise, to bring up a little bit of hype, like, oh my gosh, this guy could be someone that could dethrone Tom Aspinall potentially. Because Tallison Texeira is massive. He is huge. And yeah, he absolutely just mauled through, what's his name? Not the guy who's on the card, which is like Junior Tafa, but the other Tafa brother. He mauled through him in the first round. Elbow, as you can see, 6'7", just insane height, arms, strength. When you talk about huge, scary heavyweights, this guy represents that. And as we know, most of the heavyweight division is just awful these days. It's so horrible. It's in probably the worst state it's ever been in. And it's definitely the worst division in the UFC by far. And then you have Derrick Lewis, who's always been kind of a player, but like he got there a couple times and then he's lost a bunch. Derrick Lewis has literally been up and down in his career, which honestly, a lot of questions. I question why the UFC is still putting this guy in main events as if he's some like high level heavyweight. But I mean, that's all they got really. He lost 3 in a row to Tai Tuivasa, Sergey Pavlovich, Sergey Spivak. Got a win versus Marcus Rodrigo de Lima. Most of his wins, though, come from the KOs. He has what's the main stat that everyone says about Derrick Lewis? He has the most knockouts and finishes for a heavyweight. He's coming off a win, though, versus Rodrigo Nascimento, and that was in his last main event fight night back in 2024. He lost to Jailton Almeida. He fought Cyril Gane for a title originally at UFC 265. Curtis Blades. He's fought against the who's who of the division. He's been around for a very long time, since 2014. And Derrick Lewis, he just likes to make fun. He just likes to be entertaining, which you could respect. I don't know, he pulls down his shorts. He flips off the crowd. He does a bunch of antics. He said some crazy things in one of these interviews I saw about him. So yeah, Derrick Lewis, character, looking to just make some noise, put on a good show. But yeah, for the greater good of the heavyweight division, Tallison Texeira, I think, will get the win here and continue to just build his momentum as this new up-and-coming scary prospect on the scene that could be a threat to Tom Aspinall. Because you look at the rest of the heavyweight division, there's nobody that could seem to be up to the level of Tom Aspinall right now, especially with the loss of John Jones, although John Jones now teased a return already to the testing pool because he wants to be a part of the White House. John Jones is continuing to just try to grab at whatever could keep him relevant, even when he's out of the sport and he's already retired. Tom Aspinall is our heavyweight champion, and Tallison Texeira could be, in the future, at least some kind of challenge to Tom Aspinall when Tom Aspinall's racking up more title defenses versus the Volkovs, the Pavloviches, the Curtis Blades, and everyone who he's ran through already, and be just a fresh matchup. So I don't know. Derrick Lewis, he always could do something, but Tallison Texeira is just crazy how big he is. The way that he just cut through with some elbows. He made Tafa look small in there, and he just ran through him. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the main event. Not too much to discuss. Whatever. Hopefully it's an entertaining fight. I'm picking Tallison Texeira to finish Derrick Lewis within the first two. Or Derrick Lewis. I don't think this fight's going to decision, though. I think one of these guys is going to finish the other. Because Derrick Lewis is always coming for that finish. Stephen Thompson in the co-main event, Wonderboy versus Gabriel Bonfim. Most of the fighters on this card I've not really watched live. But Stephen Thompson, I did watch him versus Joaquin Buckley back on 307. I did watch him. I mean, Stephen Thompson, also a legend of the game. Back in the day, was a very high-profile welterweight back in the days when he was fighting Tyron Woodley. Whatever, Wonderboy's a legend. He's a high-technical striker on the feet. And maybe this is a little bit more of a better matchup for him than the Joaquin Buckley matchup was. But, again, this could be the last time we see Stephen Thompson fight. This could potentially be his last fight if he loses. I mean, let's see how he's doing. Yeah, and I watched him get submission. Whoa, what did I say there? Choked out by Shavkat Rakhmonov. He beat Kevin Holland back in 2022. Lost to Bilal Muhammad. He's also fought the who's who. He's been around for so long, Wonder Boy. Yeah, so he got knocked out by Joaquin Buckley, and then for Gabriel Bonfim, new on the scene, 17-1. Unfortunately for Stephen Thompson, I'm going to be picking Gabriel Bonfim to kind of like submit him or something. I don't know. I just think Wonderboy don't got it no more. And Gabriel Bonfim, I'm picking him to beat Wonderboy Thompson. Then you got Calvin Kattar versus Steve Garcia. Calvin Kattar, like, really just on the dipping end of his career. He had some really good, like, classic fights back in the day, most notably the one versus Max Holloway, where people say that Calvin Kattar was never the same after that fight because of how much damage he took when Max Holloway was screaming, "I'm the best boxer," while Calvin Kattar was trying to slug him, and Max Holloway was just doing a Matrix-type moves where he's weaving and bobbing, and just Calvin Kattar's missing everywhere, and it was just an absolute violent war. And Calvin Kattar's on a huge skid right now. He's on a 4-fight losing streak. He lost to Josh Emmett, Arnold Allen, and most recently Aljamain Sterling at 300, and then Youssef Zalal in a UFC Apex co-main event. But Calvin Kattar, he's a fun featherweight striker, just never really found his footing in this division. He's been up and down. He's just kind of been this in-between kind of player, but not really, because he hasn't really kept his spot, held his own in the rankings. And he's taken on Steve Garcia, who I think like lost like his first fight, and since then is on like a 5-fight win streak. And this guy is just violent. And he's been popping people left and right and finishing in absolute... And you see, look at this. In his last 5 fights, all winning by KO, TKO finishing. How could you pick against this guy? Chase Hooper, that aged really well, because Chase Hooper's now a little bit on a good winning streak. Was popping Chase Hooper several times and knocking him down before eventually winning the fight. Absolutely popped this dude, Nurdanbike. Left Costa in a violent, bloody, like crazy violent finish. Just left Costa hanging at the ref's feet, drenched in blood. And then finished Choi, and most recently Nelson. So this guy, Steve Garcia, is a finisher. Has these like really like ugly looking but effective hooks that he throws. Overhand hooks. He has long, rangy arms, and he's just been putting people out left and right. I don't know much about Steve Garcia. I'll be honest, I've never watched a Steve Garcia fight live yet. I hope to this weekend to watch this guy live, but I mean, Calvin Kattar, he's been in too many wars where he's been on the wrong side of it, being finished. He's on a 4-fight win streak, and unfortunately, it's about to be 5. And I really like Calvin Kattar a lot. I hope he could bounce back, honestly, but I just don't see how he gets past Steve Garcia. I think the UFC is just feeding this guy to another, just super violent up-and-coming guy who's going to probably KO him again in Calvin Kattar. But this should be a really good striking fight. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on that one. And then Nate Landwehr, Nate the Train, coming off the loss versus Du Hoi Choi. And Morgan Charrier, who I picked to beat Nathaniel Wood, but he lost. And Morgan Charrier, yeah, that kind of checked the hype a little bit for me on Morgan Charrier. But he was really exciting. He's had a couple really good finishes. And I'm expecting this to be like any Nate Landwehr fight, a good old classic slugfest. Nate Landwehr always making it interesting, always bringing it with some slugging. So I'm hoping Morgan Charrier could return the favor, and I'm hoping that Nate Landwehr just gets reckless and Morgan Charrier pops him on a counter. That's how I could see the fight going. So I'm gonna go with Morgan Charrier. And then Vitor Petrino. This guy was undefeated, and then he got fraud checked when he lost to Anthony Smith. And then he lost again to Dustin Jacoby at Tampa. Crazy knockout, violent knockout by Dustin Jacoby on that card, which was, by the way, Tampa was an incredible card. So many finishes. He's taking on Austin Lane, two blobs in this heavyweight division. Vitor Petrino had a lot of promise, but come on, if you lose to Austin Lane, that's really down bad. Vitor Petrino better pick up this win versus Austin Lane to get something back. Get something back in his momentum. We got to see it. So, yeah, Vitor Petrino just got to win versus Austin Lane. Austin Lane, bro. And then Junior Tafa making a light heavyweight debut, I believe. I saw some pictures. This guy seems to have gotten into a little bit of better shape for this fight. The younger brother of the other Tafa. So, yeah, this is a cool main card opener. And versus Tuco Tucos, I'm going to go with Junior Tafa. And then Chris Curtis versus Max Griffin, both coming off losses. Go with Chris Curtis. Max Griffin's just old. He's just a vet at this point. Like Chris Curtis, hopefully will get his act together. And then Chidi Njokuani versus Jake Matthews. Cool fight in the prelims. Chidi Njokuani had a really cool finish in his last fight. And Jake Matthews also had a win. I'm going to go with Chidi Njokuani. Then you got Kennedy Nzechukwu versus Valter Walker. I think Valter Walker, Johnny Walker's brother, will pick up another win. And yeah, not much for me to sink my teeth into with this card, honestly. But I just wanted to get back on here, put up a video, because it's been a little bit of a break since I've dropped my last video. But next week, we talking about UFC 318, which is going to be, I don't know, I have some thoughts about that card, so we'll talk about it then. But after that, the rest of the UFC for the summer looks really, really good. Really, really good. So, hope everyone enjoys the weekend, and let's enjoy this fight night either way.